For the regular meeting agenda for the corporate board, John Bell.
Here.
Catherine Gabriel Cox.
Present. Here. Okay, so closed session report, we have a closed session. Agenda modification consideration, are there any agenda modifications? Julie?
Maybe request the audit up so that we didn't have to keep Gerald here.
Okay. So the item 10, we can do that, item 10. Okay, still waiting.
Yeah.
Sorry, I'm earlier.
Is it?
I stuck around. Oh, there you go. Okay, so let's move to the other. Do you want to tee it up for us, Julie?
Yeah, I will.
Okay.
Let's forget.
Can you show me how to attend these online?
Would you recommend us taking just a motion action or a action to amend the
For
agenda?
the agenda modification? Yes. Do we have a motion?
I'll move the motion to move the audit item 10, I believe, to or renumber that to be a first presentation.
I'll second that.
Yeah.
All right, great. Well, thank you for doing that. At this time, I'd like to introduce Gerald Tucker from JWT and Associates. They are our independent auditors. We have worked with Gerald and his team of Gerald and Nate, and for about 6 months on this audit, because this was the first audit of the new corporation district and hospital corporation, and making sure that we have well established what our opening balances should be in all of our accounts, and that all of our accounting is properly done. And so it's been a significant effort for the finance team. It's been a very educational effort, a very collaborative effort. I'm very appreciative of Gerald and Nate for the work they've done. What you did see in the audit report that went out, probably no surprises in terms of kind of where our major challenges are with reimbursement, recruiting physicians and staff because of the cost of living sometimes, and because of, just that there are shortages in certain professions. The fact that we don't own our own hospital, and so we have to make enough money to cover lease payments, the fact that we started with limited working capital, and that we're really still in a transition and stabilization mode. So a lot of good work that's gone on. I think this audit is well representing. There are some unique things that Gerald's going to speak to about extraordinary income and some of the late client entries that we're making to kind of restate some financials as of 12/31. It's important to remember that this particular audit really only covers September 1st to December 31st, a 4-month audit. So we're getting this one wrapped up, which will enable us to do some other things that were dependent on an audit. And then in just a few months, we'll be starting up the 23 audit with Gerald and Steve. So with that, I will pass this on to Gerald.
Thanks. I was offered the opportunity to just come and be broadcast or whatever, but given the first year audit and some of the issues, complexity of the audit, I thought it'd be best to come over, see you guys in person, say hi to my old friend, John, and, and put a face to the audit. What Julie just said is all true. There was a lot to kind of organize and get done for this audit. You guys are a pretty good sized organization, really, even though you're new, and the complexity of how you have it organized also lends to a little bit of a difficulty with the audit. But having said that, the audit went pretty good. When I first got here and I saw the public comment going on, I didn't know you were going to break and then have the private session or the closed session afterwards. And then after you closed out the public comment, everyone just was out of here, right? I thought, oh, they must have heard the audit was going to get reported. I don't know if John was this. I was at a hospital down in Southern California several years ago, and John might have been the CEO at the time, but I came in to do a board presentation, and I walked in the door, and one of the board members said, loud enough for me to hear, he goes, "Oh, no." The audit, you know, we're gonna have the audit report. I'm like, yeah, that, you know, makes us feel really good. You know, we work our tails off to get it all done, then we come in here and then the board just kind of, some of, I think so. Most, I try to make them at least somewhat interesting, but you know, accounting is accounting. You don't like accounting, there's not much I can do for you. It's an acquired taste, right? So anyway, so let me just go through this. So I had a chance to meet with the finance committee yesterday. I think that went well. We had a pretty thorough discussion on the audit and, you know, answered some questions and talked about a few things. And so I'm going to just go through, and we've got a busy night. I'm just going to go through the first, there's 4 things the auditors have to report to the board. And I went through these with the finance committee yesterday. And so I want to make sure you guys understand those and are good with that. And if you have any questions, you know, raise your hand or just, you know, jump in and I'm happy to stop and try to explain or give you more information. So the first one is we have to report on what type of audit reports you received. Well, let's just take let me step back another session. Another step here. This is what's called a component unit audit. And it's called that because it's a governmental entity. The district is a governmental entity. A special district is you know, it's governed by the state of California, special district law and whatnot. But with districts, with governmental units, if there are nonprofit or other units that are so related, both financially, management-wise, and so on and so forth, influence, then you have to do a consolidated audit. If you were in a for-profit situation, I have clients like this as well. You know, I've got clients that own 2 or 3 different hospitals, and the management group is 99% the same for all hospitals. Well, even though they're different entities, you're that side, non-governmental, but financially, accounting requires those to be consolidated. Same thing. So this is a consolidated audit, if you want to think of it that way. When you start talking about component units, it's you and the hospital, boom, all together. I think you saw those consolidating statements at the back of the audit if you look through the draft. So you receive 2 audit reports. There's actually 2 audits going on at the same time. First one is your normal financial audit. If any of you has ever gone through an audit of any other entity, a bank, a farm, a manufacturing, it's a financial audit. It's by general accepted accounting principles. You do generally accepted auditing standards and so on and so forth. And you come up with the financial statements and you come up with a report. And the report basically says that numbers are good, the numbers aren't so good, or the numbers are bad. And it's called a modified or an unmodified, a modified or a disclaimer, an opinion. Unmodified means that the numbers are good. And when I see the numbers are good, when an auditor says the numbers are good, it doesn't mean you're doing good. It means the numbers are accurate. Okay, so you know, just make sure you understand that. So we are charged with making sure that the financial statements are materially correct, that numbers are accurate, and that they're properly reported. So that report, unmodified, clean opinion. It took a lot of work by Julie and her staff. I mean, I can't give them enough kudos. They really busted their rear to get us the documentation to you know, kind of dig into the various transactions, to give us all the information we needed to be comfortable with the numbers we were looking at and what was in there. The second audit is a governmental audit, and that's because you're a district. And so the government gets involved and says, if you're doing a government entity, we want you to look at other certain things, and more specifically, internal controls and different things like that. So we go through, we test transactions, we test balances and all this, and then we come up with a report. And that report was also unmodified. So that one doesn't so much say that your numbers are good. That one says we believe your numbers because the system generating your numbers is good. And so both of those were unmodified and good reports. Any questions on that? Okay, you guys still awake? I'm just getting the good stuff. There were no, so the next thing we have to report is if there's any material weaknesses, any significant deficiencies, or any reportable findings. Material weaknesses and significant deficiencies, those usually crop up in our testing, or when we're looking at transactions, we're looking at balances and whatnot, and they're wrong. They're either just wrong number-wise or they're wrong report-wise. And we didn't have any of those issues. But that's generated, I mean, that's kind of done by a materiality level. And we don't look big reveal here. We don't look at every single transaction for the whole year. We can't, there's just a gazillion of them. So we look at things on a test basis and so on and so forth. We look at things that are large or unusual or whatever, no issues. Under reportable findings, regardless of the amount, if we find something that's been misreported, sent to, a cost report or whatever, or a defalcation or whatever, we have to report that. And we didn't find anything of that nature at all. So no material weaknesses, no significant deficiencies, no reportable findings. There were no audit adjustments, but I'm going to put a little asterisk next to that because there were several what we call late client entries. There's a little bit of a difference between that. An audit adjustment is where, Julie hands us the numbers and goes like this and says, have at it, and then we find errors and we have to book the adjustment. This was more of a collaborative type audit. We've been working together for, like you said, 6 months. And there were a number of things that we had questions, they had questions on, and we would talk it through. We would talk through what the proper accounting for is, and they would go back, work out the numbers, book the adjustments and whatnot, and then hand the information to us to audit. We can't audit our own numbers, if you know what I mean. And so that's why it was crucial for them to kind of have a control of their general ledger, their drawdown, and the numbers, and they did a good job. So some of the main things that we were dealing with was, like you mentioned, finalizing the accounting for the acquisition transaction. And that's very technical accounting. We talked through, got that all right. Getting all the notes payable correct, getting them on the books, making sure who's owed what is all set. Getting the accounting for the QAF, the quality assurance, funds, making sure that accounting is all done correctly and properly. And then the new operating lease accounting requirements that we went through and got booked in there as well. So those are the things that were kind of some of the main issues that we looked at. The last of the 4 is that we have to report if there's any difficulties encountered with management, difficulties meaning any disagreements or refusal by management to book an adjustment or to report something a certain way. And we had none of that, no difficulties, no disagreements. Again, Julie and her staff did an excellent job of getting us what we needed in a timely manner, a usable manner. And I kind of felt for them because they were usually scrambling between a couple of different systems that were working, old, new, the clinic and whatnot, but they did an admirable job of pulling all that information and getting it to us in a manner where we could use it. And then we would meet over this last month or so. I think we were meeting at least once or twice a week, going through the audit, going through things as they got it, and they were able to bring us information and get things fixed and whatnot. So those are the 4 things that have to be reported on the audit. And so there you go. Questions, comments, concerns? Hit speak now or forever hold on. So as I mentioned, a couple of significant accounting issues. I'll just touch on them a little bit more. I think a lot of this has probably been beaten to death already. I mean, we're already, geez, are we in October already? Yeah, it's like done. We should have dressed up tonight. It should have been like Halloween 14. But so we're talking about 12/31/22, right? So it's already been, you've seen that, you've seen those numbers, you saw the preliminary information that came out. So a lot of this isn't going to be new to you. The component unit reporting, we talked about that. That's required. It's an accounting requirement. If you're a governmental entity, one of the first things we do is we look at who do you have business with. And it's a pretty easy call. If you're a district and you're operating a hospital, it's going to be a component unit. And we've got districts that have, rural health centers and that are spun off and this and that. And they're still all component units. Just when the board looks, when I walk into the next board meeting or the hospital board meeting, and a lot of you guys look exactly the same, that's my tip off that there's probably some, it's a component unit. So that's why we have the combined statements, and that's all. And we eliminated, intercompany type transactions, any revenue or expenses that was intercompany. We've eliminated all that and all the normal things. The acquisition transaction, that was a little bit more difficult, but we got it all in, got the books on and whatnot. Many of you probably saw that $20 million gain. They used to call them extraordinary gains. We put it in there for now, but that's not that's not gonna be the final wording. It'll be a gain on the transaction. What happens with that is you bring everything on at the cost that you bought the hospital for, but you bought more than you paid for. If that makes sense. And so what happens is that works its way through fruition as it gets to the final balances on December 31/22. It's like your assets grew in value, but you didn't do anything. Well, that value has to go somewhere. And it's a non-cash gain. Does that make sense? You understand what a non-cash gain is? So you got income. It shows income because that's how it works, but you didn't get paid. It's not like money came in the door. And so, and if you have a question on that, I can try to explain it more, but that's about it in a nutshell. And then the new operating lease reporting, and this hit you guys, pretty hard, but there's not a lot of impact on the P&L. It's pretty much just on the balance sheet. It used to be whenever you signed a long-term operating lease, you lease copiers, you lease a building, whatever. If you do a test, what's called a capital lease test, I don't know if any of you guys know what a capital lease is. That's like a financing lease. You're gonna own it when you're done, right? You'd look at, is there a bargain purchase option at the end? Am I gonna own it at the end? There's ownership transfer, blah, blah, blah. And you would actually book it with long-term debt. It would go on your balance sheet as an asset, on your balance sheet as a liability. And when you pay to get an interest expense and you drop down the liability and you depreciate the asset. Well, the powers that be in accounting decided a few years ago that all leases need to be handled this way. And so they passed a new regulation. And so the big one is your hospital. So that hospital lease now, so if you look at the balance sheet on the front of your, on the front of the balance sheet, you've got this leased asset amount, $34.7 million. Okay, that's, with lack of a better word, it's kind of a phantom asset. So what it is basically you take the exact same treatment as a capital asset. When we don't expect you to own that, you're not passing the ownership, transfer, any of these other tests on the capital lease. All you have to pass is it material? And is it longer than a year? So copiers, telephone systems, MRI, and a building, right? Anything you have. So you go through, you look at how long you're going to be paying these rental payments, and you do some net present value calculations and whatnot, and you end up with a $34 million asset and a $35 million liability. And as you pay it, the lease payments go in, it kind of turns into a lease / depreciation type payment, and there's an imputed interest rate that gets thrown in there as well. So you see those adjustments. There's not much impact on the P&L. What'll happen is there's a little bit of an impact where it lessens your income the first few years of the lease, then it swings around and it goes the other way towards the end where you've got more less interest, and it'll go the other direction towards the end. But I just want to make sure when you look down there, I want you to make sure that you saw a $35 million asset and liability. Have a heart attack and wonder who the heck signed up for a $35 million loan without telling you guys. So that's that. So those are the main things, really technical things. And I'm sure that was real exciting. You guys can't wait to get home and tell your husband or wife or the kids, But anyway, that's the audit report. I mean, I can answer any questions if you have questions about the notes or the financials or any other amount on there. I can answer it. If not, I'll let you get on with your business. And
I just wanted to clarify the obvious, inactive CPA 94019.
okay.
Clean audit, clean internal controls. That's a strong accolades to our team. So I'm appreciate you being here, Gerald. I appreciate our team and the work they've done. This was not an easy audit, we know that.
Okay.
And this was not an easy transaction, we know that. So we appreciate all the work on both sides. And again, if anybody from the public is listening, a clean audit and clean internal controls, those are two really positive things for brand new hospital. So thank you.
And one thing I would say, I appreciate that comment. A lot of the startups we work with, they focus on the clinical side, which is fine. I'm an accountant for a reason, obviously. I'm not real clinical in nature, but the typical administration tends to be kind of an afterthought. I appreciated the fact that once we got up and going and the hospital got going and I was working with the team, that there were multiple people involved and multiple competent people involved. I try not to forget names, but Julie, Jessica, and Grace, a lot of times it's just a Julie, and then you're just killing yourself trying to get through the audit and all the transactions until you kind of come up to speed. You realize you got to hire a few more people. So, kudos to being sensitive to the fact that you have to have the right staff in place. I mean, accounting may not seem like the most important thing for everyone, but you know, to make managerial decisions going forward. And to be able to kind of keep a finger on the pulse of what's going on from a financial standpoint, it's good to have adequate and competent staff. And so we appreciate the fact that you were well staffed here at Baharo Valley and Watsonville.
Chad, are you listening? I bark. I bark.
Any questions? Any surprises? Anything that you said, oh, I didn't expect that? Okay, well, good. And you guys are easy.
Cheryl, thank you.
Thank you.
Gerald, thank you very much, and I know she's gonna kill me right now, but just because I think you guys need to know who's really the brains behind all this hard work, Jessica, would you just stand up, please? She came on February 27th of 23. So she basically came on and we said, meet Gerald. Figure it out, please.
If I had $1 for every email that we exchanged, I could retire.
So I owe Gerald, Jessica and Grace and Gerald, and they really are the hard, heavy lifting in this audit.
Well, it's good to hear that because even though this was an abbreviated audit, it really did set a nice baseline for next year.
Yep.
The team's working together, you're working well with Joe, and that gives me a lot of comfort, knowing that next year's audit, the current year's audit should go a lot smoother.
You do.
Thank you.
We've already talked, I mean, planning some dates, you know, we were hoping to get in here a lot earlier, you know, this next year. They're closing their books on a regular basis, you know, now that everything's kind of been, you know, cleaned up and organized and stuff, I think this next one should go a lot smoother. I would be surprised if we're not in here before the middle of the year, for sure.
Thanks for the warning.
Mark your calendar, the auditor's coming in.
Coming on the March or April meeting.
So so no questions, we're good?
So just quickly, Joe, I think we talked about this in finance yesterday, that a couple more steps that have to come to the board for final approval.
So we met with finance yesterday. Finance voted to recommend the audit for approval. So that this is typically a board action item, right? And someone does the motion, someone seconds it, and then you vote. And then if the board approves it, then my next step would be to send out Julie, what's called a managed rep letter, an audit representation letter. She'll sign that or go through it, sign it and whatnot. That basically just says, you know, that her staff didn't like us. And then once we receive that letter, then we can issue the final report. And then you get that to your banks and whoever else, you know, is handling. I'm sure there's a number of people knocking on your door wanting to see your audited financial statements.
And the goal is to have all of that wrapped up by next Tuesday, October 31st, because I have some final extensions on getting an audit.
Well, as quick as you turn that letter back to us, I mean, I can have the final back to you in 15 minutes. So
Yeah.
there's not, I mean, we have a few little cosmetic things, but you know, it's ready to go. So
If the letter's on my desk tomorrow,
Yep.
it will be. or
yeah,
my
I'll
email
send it out.
tomorrow,
If you approve it, I'll send it out when I get home, you know, first thing in the morning. You guys are good to go.
Yeah, do we have anybody online, Rosie?
We do have 5 attendees online. I do not see any.
Okay, so before Joe leaves, it's a good time for public comment. Would anybody in the audience here or online wish to ask a question or make a comment about the audit report we just received? Jessica?
So, you know, if you ask an accounting question, you're gonna get the wrong answer. No, I'm joking.
Any hands raised, Rosie? Okay,
We have a motion?
I'll motion staff's recommendation to approve the incredibly clean financial audit for the Par Valley Healthcare District and Par Valley Healthcare District. Audit findings for the period ending December 31st, 2022. Staff's recommendation.
I'll second that.
going to poll the board?
Yes, Dr. Bell,
Yes.
Dr. Catherine Gallagher.
Yes.
Joe Gallagher.
Yeah.
Jose Nunez.
Yes.
Marcus Pinatella.
Yes.
Great, thank you, everyone. Great job.
I was told there's 2 meetings tonight. Do I have to come back or is that good? You guys just like roll the tape?
We'll be good.
You guys will be good to go?
We'll be good. Yeah.
Great.
All right,
Thank you.
thank you, Carol.
I'll be in touch with you in the morning then.
All right.
Forget about our holiday for kids campaign, Carol.
Yeah.
There you go.
Okay, so back to the agenda, you know, we looked over,
Can we go back to the consent calendar?
Yes.
yeah. So any public comment on matters not on the agenda? Anybody in the audience? Like to comment? Anybody online, Rosie, that you'd like to do that?
I do not have anything to say.
Okay, we'll close the public comment period. We'll go to comments from the board members. Any comments from the board? I'd just like to reiterate what was said. I know what an audit is like. I couldn't imagine going through this one with a short window that you had, but you guys did a great job. You really did a great job, and I know you pull your hair out, Grace, the others. So, but it got done, and the audit is so important because, as you mentioned, creditors and so forth will be looking for it. And as we move forward in time, one of the first things that people ask for, check out your credibility, is your financial independent audit. So it's good to have that behind us. So thank you. Okay, no other comments from board members? Okay, consent calendar. They're listed below. Any comments on the consent calendar?
No comments. I'll move approval of consent, and I've shared some cosmetic edits with Rosie for.
That will be for the next.
Oh, I'm sorry. You're right. I'll move consent.
Yeah, we have a second.
Yeah, I'll second it.
Yeah. Okay, roll call, John Braille,
Yes,
Dr. Catherine Gabriel Cox,
I abstained for number 3.
Dr. Joe Gallagher,
Yes.
Susan Unions,
Yes.
Marco.
Yes. You approved items 1, 2, 3.
Yeah, I
1, 2, and
approved 1, 2, and 4.
Yeah.
oh, you abstained.
Abstained for
Yeah.
number.
All right.
Okay, so we have the medical staff report. Item number 5, medical executive leave. Which we heard earlier in closed session. Yes. So we have to accept that now and approve it? Yes. Okay, so we'd like to make a motion that we.
I move approval.
I'll second.
Comments. What's comments?
Sure, we can do that. So it's been moved and seconded. Is there public comment? Anybody in the audience present like to talk about the medical staff report, or anybody online?
I'm not seeing any hands raised.
Okay, we pull the board.
John Braille,
Yes.
Dr. Catherine Gabriel Cox,
Yes,
Dr. Joe Gallagher.
Yes.
Susan Unions,
Yes.
Marco.
Yes.
Good. Moving on to item number 6, we'll have to go through the hospital food market pilot program. Rebecca, are you gonna?
Yes, thank you, Sheriff Creel. There was some information included in your packets related to general conditions within our community. And so we've been working with Second Harvest Food Bank on a program that we believe will support our community in the way necessary. We're gonna take our former gift shop space, which has been vacant for a couple of years, probably 4 years at this point. And we're gonna create a program that supports, initially it's gonna be a food pantry that supports our OE program and our pregnant moms in the community. And so with the high incidence of diabetes and childhood obesity within our community, and at a greater rate in our area than it is in other parts of our county, we feel this is a great program for that purpose. There'll be, in addition to providing healthy foods, there'll be education and programs associated with just nutrition and then healthy living in general. So our goal is to capture the moms during their prenatal period and then continue through to 5 years old where they can participate in this. So capturing the newborns essentially before they're born and carrying through those early influential years for both the newborn and the family. So I just wanted to highlight the fact there was information in the packet that this is something we're working on. We're really working on supporting our community in the appropriate ways. And this is one of the things we're doing, and we're gonna be launching this June. You'll have more information as we get closer. But just wanted the board to be aware of the work that's being done. Any questions? Happy to answer questions.
But this is not an action item, this is just an update.
It's not an action, item, just an update. Okay.
To share pride and joy in this. I appreciate the efforts and it's just a wonderful identification of who our community is and where the needs are at, and then finding an option to try to bridge that. So thank you to everybody who had a hand in this. Thank you to Second Harvest Food Bank for being an incredible partner. Just big kudos. This is a huge win for our community and a great movement by our hospital team and our hospitals. Thank you.
Is the, Matco, is the room gonna have like a significant upgrade or are there like some sort of?
So, yeah, there's going to be, we're gonna convert it into a food pantry essentially. There's some refrigeration that Second Harvest has provided already. The team has been working on sprucing up the room, making it, you know, as nice as we can for our community. It's going to be nice. As we develop that, we'll share pictures and we'll have an open house once we're ready to launch as well.
It's great. Yeah, I would love to have, might be a little expensive, but have some sort of like local artist in there. Put a nice little flair onto it, and just with all the number of kids that are gonna be going through there with their mothers and everything like that, it's just. You know, when you talk about what the role of a healthcare district, you know, is in our community. And what the hospital can be because of the healthcare district, these are the sort of things that, you know, are really exciting, I think, for myself, I think for everyone on the board as well, too. And then the other question that I had, Matt, is there potential there for us or for the service providers to be beneficiaries of like the ECM program through the state? Do we know that if we would qualify for something like that and for more reimbursements?
We'll explore all those opportunities, but we feel this is the right thing to do for our community and we wanted to get it started in conjunction with Second Harvest, and we'll be bringing other partners in as well. Nancy, who happens to be in the audience, is working. You mentioned artwork. I love that idea. Nancy's been instrumental in working with people and kind of bringing a Watsonville flair to that room, so it'll have that Watsonville touch.
Nice. Yeah, I really the ECM program, that's where, especially with the population of mental health patients that we serve, it's something that I think that, you know, it's beneficial for us, and I would love for us to take full advantage of that. I mean, it's been pitched. I don't think it's quite this simple, but it's like paying people for the work that they're already doing. It's been pitched that way, but I don't think it's that simple. Just from my experience with community bridges right now, but it is something that, you know, we could take advantage of going forward. So I'm excited about this. Thanks for your work.
Thank you.
Any public comment on this topic? Anybody in the audience present? I don't see the hands raised. Anybody online? Rosen? Okay, thank you, Matco. Good luck. Thank you for your hard work. So item number 7 is the Santa Cruz County Pediatric Crisis Stabilization. Matco, again, you're gonna.
Yes, thank you, Chair Phil. Once again, informational for the group. We're working with the County of Santa Cruz. Little bit of background. The county has purchased a building and is going to be developing a pediatric facility that they're working on 18 to 24 months out likely. Maybe Marcus has a better time frame, but that's what we're expecting. So currently the both facilities in the county are receiving pediatric stabilization holds and dealing with that. What we're proposing to do with the county is be designated as the ED receiving facility for those pediatric patients. Once again, supporting the community needs and making our ED available for that purpose for the period of time while the county develops their facility. So working with the county and county behavioral health to put a program together, they're going to be engaging with a contract provider that'll support us in our ED. We're already getting about 40 to 45% of those patients in our ED. So what we're proposing is that we will just be the designated facility and make sure that those patients are cared for appropriately with the resources of the contractor that's going to support us. We feel it's going to be better for the community and in general. So more information to come. But
So can you tell us a little bit more about these minors that retain a 55-85 hold?
so it's a pediatric hold could be for a variety of reasons, but generally mental health hold. And so they come in, they're medically evaluated first and foremost, and then they're treated for their condition or stabilized in a way that will either allow them to be discharged back to their family or have to be transferred to a longer term facility. So we will be working with the contractor on that.
Does the contractor supply providers?
There will be 2 providers on site 12 hours a day, 7 days a week. To supplement what we already do. They'll be focused on the mental health aspects. And we will do what we always do, medical stabilization components and medical evaluation.
So presently, these patients are housed in the emergency room.
These patients are currently housed in the emergency room, and then once they're medically cleared, we reach out and work towards getting services, the appropriate services for them. So the advantage here is those services, at least 12 hours a day, will be in-house, and they will be able to position these patients for success with another organization if necessary, or provide the treatment necessary to be able to do a safe discharge back to the families. Yes,
I had a couple of nuts and bolts questions. Do you imagine this happening in the overflow section that's sometimes urgent care, or in the main part of the ER, or just depending on availability of that?
I think it'll greatly depend on availability, but the preference would be to treat them in the main ED. We typically use rooms 3, 4, and 5 that are right across from the nurse's station. And so that will be, the average length of stay is fairly short for these kids. So we don't anticipate having more than 1 or 2 at a time.
Right, that's really my other question, impacting bed availability for the ER. In the past, I've seen kids stay a couple of days.
Right.
Until they found someplace in the East Bay or somewhere, is my recollection.
Right. So we've been tracking length of stay since July, and both facilities, generally length of stay is less than a day.
Okay.
Both facilities have had a couple of outliers. Our most recent one, I think, was about 4 days.
The other question
So
is,
again, those resources that are going to be in-house are going to help with placement when appropriate.
at night when it's a sitter, hopefully that's not a sitter pulled from the nurse's aide from the 3rd floor.
No. In the ED, we use our security guards as patient watch.
Okay. And the other thing, are the behavioral health people available at night on call if something deteriorates so that this young person just doesn't get majorly sedated?
Well, we'll be working through that. So they'll be
Okay.
available initially 12 hours a day, but we'll be working with the agency on that.
And I heard you say this is 18 or 24 months until the county has its facility.
Correct.
Is there a plan B in case this impacts the ER in a way that's, this doesn't work?
There is. I mean, we've instituted a cap. We want to make sure that we don't anticipate ever getting to 4 patients, but we have capped it at that.
Okay.
And due to the short length of stay, we don't anticipate it to impact our ED in that way, but we can also pivot if it proves to be a burden greater than we can sustain.
Pivot to like elsewhere in the hospital, or?
Pivot to where what we're currently doing, where each facility gets their own. We can go into the diversion.
Good enough. Thank you.
And what's the age range of this population?
Up to 18.
Up to 18?
Yes.
And is there a minimum age?
We typically don't see kids younger than just working off memory, early, like 10, 11, possibly. That's typically the youngest I can remember seeing.
Any other questions for Matco?
Probably too far looking ahead, but the county facility, and that's the health and campus on Freedom Boulevard, that they typically have, that they have right now, and or is it still under consideration where, and do we know like a timeline? I know it says 18 to 24. I'm sure we can extend if they need more time, but
Right.
it's just whenever they're ready.
Right, exactly. And so I think they anticipate at least initial conversations were 18 months or less, but you know how that always goes. So
Yeah.
we'll put a thing in place. They did share their address with me, but I don't recall it's not on Freedom Boulevard. I know that.
Big
It's in
County,
SoCal.
Big County next, it's the old Bay Federal Administrative Building, right next to the sheriff's station. The sheriff's buildings, right on the side of the freeway. The county acquired the property to be renovating it to its use. And these kids otherwise would be deployed and moved to other places throughout the state. It's incredible. I'm very pleased to hear our hospital stepping in to play a role in this. And, you know, there's also an element of we're alleviating pressure at the other hospitals in the county. So
Right.
hope there's some consideration that they can think about for us.
Well, you know, our goal as a district is to support our community, and we're trying to demonstrate that. And I think this is exciting for those of us that have been here a long time, because we are actually taking steps and actions towards supporting our community in the right way. So
In
very
addition to
happy
being,
to see
in
that.
addition to being a county-wide lead.
Exactly, exactly.
This isn't being done at the other hospitals, it's being done here.
Right.
Any public comment on this topic? Rosie, anybody online?
One hand raised. We'll allow them to speak tonight on. Carmen Powell.
Hi, this is Dr. Carmen Powell, Pediatric Hospitalist and Medical Director for the Pediatric Department at Watsonville Community Hospital. I am very much appreciative that we are making this direction in terms of supporting mental health for children in the county by stabilizing them. But I do want to make sure, is there going to be training available to our staff? As someone who's managed an acute crisis in a child, it can be very distressing and alarming for nursing and providers if they have not witnessed this. And then also, do we have other resources in terms of restraint management and things like that when it comes to security and safety for our patients, and if we need to have any policies available? Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Powell. I just want to stress these are patients that we're already seeing. We're just proposing to see a greater volume of them. So those policies are in place. Those resources that are going to be on site are going to be extremely helpful. And it's again, these are patients that we're already seeing currently. I think 45% is the number that I recall. As far as the county goes, we already see about 45% of these patients.
Thank you. Any other public comment? If not, we'll close this topic and move on. This is information only, right?
Yes.
Okay, thank you, everybody. You need to take a sip of water because you're next. CEO report.
Thank you. It's my favorite part of the month. I love it. Thank you, Chair Friel. I'll try to keep my board report brief. Several things I wanted to touch on, though. October 5th, we had our anniversary celebration here on site. I just wanted to thank everybody that participated and attended. It was very well attended, and a great team effort to get that together. June, as well as Nancy and the entire team. Thank you for a great event. Health Improvement Partnership of Santa Cruz County. We were invited to present to their group, and thank you to the board member Pimentel for his participation, and June for facilitating that. It was a great opportunity for us to provide an update on the current state of the hospital and where we're looking to go. So always great to get information off in front of our peers. A great event that was held, Community Bridges had their Elder Day grand opening, and there was a contingent from the hospital that attended to support it. It's a great facility and they play an important role in our patients' transition of care. So I wanted to point that out, that it's another great resource for our patients in our community. So thank you to Community Bridges, and Tony has a part to play in that as well. Cardiac cath lab, we've been talking about this, and I've been talking about this for 11 years now, but we have an equipment delivery date of November 13th. So we're very excited to be able to receive that equipment. We're working with the contractors and all the vendors to coordinate and align that so we can get that moving along and that functional as far as from an equipment standpoint by the end of the year. Nancy is working on a community needs assessment, and she's working with vendors right now, and we expect to have that completed by the end of the year. So I wanted to publicly thank Nancy for all the hard work she's doing in so many different areas, and this is another task that she's taken on. So thank you, Nancy, for taking that on. CNA negotiations, we had been operating on 30-day extensions, as you know, with the previous MOU. The union's chosen to not extend that agreement for an additional 30 days. And so right now we're operating without a contract in place, but we do have 4 sessions in November scheduled for negotiations. Those are going to be happening on the 6th, 10th, 17th, and 30th of November. Another one of our community partners is Salute. We've been working with them on specialist coverage and coordinating with Coastal Health Partners, our physician entity. We're going to work on starting with cardiology, general surgery, and podiatry, and making that available to Salute's patients on a scheduled basis. So excited to include that partnership and work towards furthering that relationship. And then just some upcoming events that I wanted to mention. Senator Laird will be here this Friday on the 27th, just to receive a hospital update. We're excited to have him. He's always a great visitor and always engaged and excited to be on hospital campus. Halloween costume and pumpkin contest on the 31st from 2 to 3. Please feel free to join us if you're available. We're also going to be doing a Dia de los Muertos altar in the cafeteria from October 30th to November 3rd. So all are welcome to bring pictures of their loved ones and participate in that. November 3rd, we'll be hosting Leadership Santa Cruz on site. They're doing a healthcare day. Congresswoman Zoe Lofgren will be here on November 9th. Again, just receiving a hospital update. November 16th, we'll be hosting our annual holiday meal for our employees.
Sorry, what's the
And
date? Sorry.
November 16th. And then Jennifer Gavin spoke earlier about the Holiday Hope Center for Farm Worker Families. December 9th, we have a goal of 100 families, and we're very excited. We're hopeful that we can meet and hopefully exceed that goal. And then last but not least, December 16th, we'll be having our holiday party again. So please mark that on your calendars, and looking forward to attending. Any questions?
Questions for medical?
Thank you for your time.
There was another, I'm getting older. October, it was your birthday. Happy belated birthday.
Thanks, Marcus. That concludes my report. Thank you.
Any public comment on that report? Anybody in the audience? Anybody online, Rosie? Hey, I believe we're made it to the end of the agenda. Catching up a little bit.
Absolutely not.
Julie,
Okay.
CFO report.
I will try and make it quick. Of course, I haven't coughed all night, but now that I'm about to speak, see me grab my cough drop. I'm going to, I had created an abbreviated report because of knowing we had the audit and other things on the agenda. Real quickly, before I get into my slides, one thing that I want to do, because we approved in the consent agenda that the bridge loan ratification, and one of the things when you had approved us potentially getting a bridge loan was that I would come back and report if we actually executed on that. Last week, we did execute a $1.5 million disbursement. We just wanted to make sure that we could cover some of the expenses. Some of the hospital quality assurance fees were a little bit delayed in being dispersed to us. So we took advantage of that loan. Very thankful to Salud for allowing us to do that. It will be a very short-term loan because we will either pay it off as we execute on our line of credit, or what might come sooner even than the line of credit is the distressed hospital loan funds. We have executed our portion of the contract and put in the disbursement for the $8.3 million hospital loan, and they are I'm in constant contact with the California Healthcare Financing Authority, and they are very close to executing or signing off on the agreement, and then they said they would disperse the funds fairly quickly. So we may see those funds, in the next couple of weeks.
Is that all coming in one payment?
Yes. And we have to delineate how we expect to use that funds. And then if I was to make any changes, I would go back and ask for a change, but we have, kind of spelled out how we will use those funds. Okay, now we can go into the one. All right. So, real quickly, the month of September was not a great month, as you can see here. A negative EBITDA of 968,000 and 1.3 million after the lease payment. Very low volumes in September, significantly lower than budget. But we know some of what's baked into the budget are the initiatives initiatives of the cath lab that we have not yet implemented, as well as the robot, in the months leading up to now being kind of behind where we had planned to be. We have had some changes in new credentialing for Dr. Redwine, and so we expect to, be working towards that volume. We're just a little bit behind. The inpatient, and I'll show you when we get to my volume side, it wasn't about admissions and discharges, it was really about patient days and a lower length of stay. And then, of course, in the surgeries. What we've really seen is that the volume is really unfavorable by about $11 million gross, but after you net that out with what we're actually paid, and as well as some favorability that we've had, it just equates to a $2.8 million unfavorable variance on net revenue, and we're actually favorable by $870,000 on expenses. Next slide. So from a year-to-date basis, we're $3.5 million behind in EBITDA, or unfavorable in EBITDA, which is about $2 million behind where we hope to be at this point in time. The majority of that really comes from the net revenue side. And as I tried to estimate what portion of that was from new initiatives versus just normal volume being down, that's what I have at the bottom here, that normal volume being down is about $830,000, and initiatives is probably close to $2.6 million for a net revenue impact of about $3.5 million. Next slide. Couple notable things, salaries and registry, that's always the hardest thing to control when you don't have the volume, because you have staffing ratios. It's harder to flex and sometimes harder to plan, but we are a bit favorable to budget, about $250,000. Despite all of the talk where we're always talking about how expensive our benefits are, and they are very expensive, but we've seen an increasing amount. I had budgeted that very heavily. So we are favorable to our budget, but we're expecting another 20% increase next year on healthcare benefits, just based on the quotes we've gotten from our broker. Supplies were a bit unfavorable to budget, $425,000, but actually below budget when you can put it on an adjusted patient day basis. And now that we've implemented the group purchasing contract, we will start in future purchases to see some of the savings flow through with that. We're favorable on purchase services, and other expenses. Most of that really is the block fees that we pay, or at least accrue for. Next slide. Here's the quick look at volume, and as I mentioned before, you can really see the big variance to budget being in the patient days, and then our length of stay was significantly better than budgeted. So delivery is about on par, a little better than budget, and surgery is being down, as I spoke to the budget, also including cath lab and more robots. ER outpatient is kind of the same story we've heard all year long. The ER is busy, the other outpatient fluctuates a little bit. And this month, outpatient surgeries were a little lower than this time last year, and of course, missing the initiative volume. So that's kind of the abbreviated report on September. It's kind of been the same story. I'm gonna give you a budget update next. And here, I'll just go ahead and slip into the next slide. You've seen most of the volume projections before. These really haven't changed too much. I tightened up a couple of things, and because today's session on the budget really talks about before initiatives, anytime that there was initiatives kind of built into the volume, I pulled them out here. And this whole presentation today is going to be before initiatives, because we still have work that we're doing in terms of identifying what initiatives we're carrying forward, such as the cat lab and sales tax exemption, things like that. What other initiatives we're going to need to focus on in terms of productivity, other cost savings, other revenue improvement initiatives. So I'll warn you ahead of time that the numbers are not, you know, they're not where we're gonna land. And they don't necessarily look inviting right now, but they are kind of the base look. Let's go to the next slide. Oh, this is a little smaller, I'm sorry, apologize for that. Really what I'm showing you here is where where we finished out, last year, and I'm just showing you the revenue side right now. Last year we ended with 125, almost $126 million worth of net revenue. This year, we're looking at closer to about 145, 146 million in revenue. So we've definitely seen some of the improvements from our contracts and some of the other revenue we got from provider relief funds earlier in the year. Next year, right now, again, before initiatives, only 149. I really anticipate, to make things work, we're probably going to need to see this in the 155 or higher after initiatives. And, the only other real big change here is, this year we've been doing a lot of work around how we're valuing our accounts receivable, and we moved money kind of from the contractual allowances to the bad debt. So you see the huge bad debt number for 2023, and then kind of a more reasonable number for 2024. We are still kind of going back and forth on whether it's 4 million, maybe a little bit more, but not expecting to see, because this year a portion of it was just moving it from contractual allowance to bad debt. Next slide. So on the expense side, last year we had $152 million worth of expense, and this is all of 22, not what we just talked about in the audit, but all of 22, so all the seller stuff as well. This year we're looking at about $146 million worth of expense, and projecting a year-end EBITDA of a negative EBITDA, but less than $1 million. But it's really once you factor in that lease payment, we're probably looking at a $5 million loss, budgeted loss for the year. And as I've told you guys every month, I've really been so much more focused on having cash every week for payroll and accounts payable, even if we have to pull back on a little bit of AP. And the budget will come as we get initiatives and things rolled out. The 24 budget before initiatives, you can see 152, almost 153 million of expense. And as you know, before I was saying I was only at 149 of revenue, and so I really want to get to surpassing the 152, closer to 155 or so in revenue. But some of this expense will go up as well when I add initiatives, so you have to balance that. My goal will be looking for things that at least try to get us to a break-even EBITDA. It's unlikely that we would get to a break-even, net income and not have a loss because of the large payments to MPT and the police payments. Next slide. So this budget, last year we gave you a very high level budget. We said this year we'll come back with department level budgets. That's still our commitment. It has proven to be an interesting journey for the finance folks. You thought audit was interesting. Budget is equally as interesting. My team is doing some great work, but they are learning a lot about the systems and reporting we have or don't have. And we meet often to kind of figure out how we're going to take the analysis deeper and how we're going to roll this out at the department level to managers. So you're seeing work that is changing every day. These numbers are a glimpse at where we're going, but these numbers will be different by the time we show up at this meeting next month. There's nothing in here where I would say, I'm sold that that's the number that's gonna be in any one of these line items. And so with that, you know, I know where I'd like the EBITDA to land, but I don't feel comfortable saying that we know it until we get a little further into this analysis. And so it's gonna be a very busy month between now and the next board meeting. With that, I'll take some questions.
Julie, you may have mentioned this before, forgive me for asking it again, but have you calculated if we get the tax relief, what that will generate as far as reduction in expense?
On the sales tax relief, I think we've estimated that at about, I always have these two backwards in my mind, between GPO and tax relief. I think the tax relief is maybe $500,000. And this is one of the things that we were not able to implement until we had a certified audit, because then we have to go get an organizational certificate, and then we can apply for the retroactivity on sales tax, as well as the ability to get that going forward. So
that 500,000 both going forward and retroactive?
well, the 500,000 is kind of like an annualized amount. So going backwards, we may get a little bit more than that. I think that, you know, the proof is in the pudding. This was an estimate done over a year ago, in terms of what it might be worth. So as we actually get into that work, I think that's where we're gonna find out how realistic that number was.
Thank you.
I'll just comment that the finance committee spent considerable time on this in the audit yesterday, and I appreciate your time and patience with our questions and queries, and also acknowledge it's October, and our aim is to bring this to the board for adoption in December. So it looks like you're doing the good work on time, and I appreciate the effort and building a strong baseline that we can have credibility and depend on. And hopefully that sales tax rebate does come in strongly, because we're still trending a 5.1-ish million loss this year. And it'd be nice to knock off $500,000 just to bring that down under 5. We've got a lot of work to do, but I know we're doing the good work. So thank you.
Any other board questions for Julie? Comments?
I do.
Joe?
Julie, thanks for all your work, both on the audit and these monthly things. I have sort of stepping back from the trees to look at the forest kind of issues, and Marcus just answered it. If we're looking at a 5.1 million projected, that's a lot better than last year, and it says to me, yes, we are headed in the right direction. Sorry, I just sort of lost the question really. For the 24 budget, if the moving pieces are the bond and the potential hospital purchase, do you make 2 sets of budgets or assumptions, or how's that work?
Really, you know, the bond measure, if we're successful with that, it'd be towards the, probably the tail end.
Yep.
Well, it depends which period we go for that, March or November. But we really would not expect to even see those funds in 24. We wouldn't see those in 25.
Good enough. Thank you.
Any public comment on Julie's presentation?
I do not see any answer.
Stephen, thank you.
Thank you, Julie. Okay, now we're adjourned for this portion, right? Okay, this meeting is adjourned, but we'll reconvene in a couple of minutes for the next one.